Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to achieve loudness, consistent levels that are going to compete. For those of you producers and beat makers out there who are wanting to upload your beats to your beat store and you want your listeners to come across it and you want your mixes to really have that loudness that stands out and that is going to sound professional. So a lot of you are struggling with this. I've done some videos covering beat mixing in the past, but I just said, you know what, let's do an updated one. Let's start from the ground up. Let's mix this thing top to bottom. We're gonna do it with an approach that if you follow this, you're always gonna end up with a loud beat that will compete and also set you up to be able to deliver your files in the most optimized way to your customers. So here is my beat. I've got everything zeroed out. And the first thing that we need to do is just go ahead and set up a few things on our master bus or our stereo output, which in my case, I'm gonna put ozone. And what we wanna do is just go ahead and set a limiter or a maximizer. So if you don't have ozone, that's okay. Just get your limiter plug in and you're gonna set the ceiling to just below 0 true peak. So I've got it at minus 0.1. If you want to be a little safer in terms of how you're delivering this stuff for the beats, it's going to be perfectly fine, you know, just below 0. But just go ahead and put it there. Set a transparent setting, which I have the transient mode on IRC4. And we're just going to park that, right? So we're not going to touch that until the very last of the mix. And I'll show you how we can use this to achieve the loudness that we're after. But we just want to put this on here as a safety net. You guys hear about engineers mixing into compressors, you know, like the SSL bus comp. We're utilizing this in a similar way, but again, it's just going to keep us in check. We're also going to be able to hear how it's affecting things like our drums, our 808. So just leave that there. Don't worry about it right now. Second thing is we want to go ahead and put on some metering. Okay, so we can keep an eye on everything. And I'm going to go ahead and just use the multimeter in Logic so that we can look at all kinds of different things like LUFS, peak, true peak, all that. All right, so in order to match loudness, we need a good solid reference. If you're coming across another producer on your beat store platform that you really respect, maybe just buy a lease from them just so that you can study the frequency response, you know, really have a loudness to target. That's perfectly fine. Or if you have another beat that you've mixed in the past that's at the level that you want to kind of aim for to keep consistency, that works too. That's the case here. I've got a beat that is already at commercial levels. So let's just pull up the multimeter and let's play this back and see where we are in terms of LUFS integrated or a long-term measurement. Okay, so again, I've already mixed this. I know this is going to be a competitive level beat, and we're getting a reading of, you know, minus 10, minus 9, somewhere in there. That's going to be plenty loud for an instrumental to really stand out for your audience. So let's just say that that's our target. I'm going to go ahead and just set that down here on our multimeter so we have something to go for. And now we can start mixing, and I want to talk about a really important thing here. And that is that a lot of you are kind of relying on the maximizer or the limiter, or you're expecting there to be some kind of secret sauce plugin that's going to give you the loudness you want. But the loudness comes in the mix. So the approach here is very important, and also the order in which we're kind of approaching the mix is very important in getting a loud beat. We're going to start with the kick and the bass, or the 808, and the drums, because these are going to be the loudest elements in, you know, 99% of you guys' production out there, unless you're working on a jazz a cappella, you know, or, you know, something with very light percussion. The kick and the bass line are going to be the loudest element. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and kind of get the most out of these that we can right here in the mixing stage. And then we're not going to have so much guesswork when we get down to our limiter or our maximizer, which we'll talk about later. Let's bring up the kick and the 808. Now, where do you bring these up? What's kind of a good level? I don't want you guys to focus on the numeric value. What I'm going to shoot for is, since we're aiming for a total LUFS integrated measurement of minus 10, minus 9, The kick should be slightly below that because with everything, obviously it's going to make the LUFS level a little bit louder than that. So let's aim for, maybe -12, -11 on the kick. I'm getting a little bit of headroom, true peak here, and then we're at like -12. So that's a good starting point. In most cases, your kick is going to be hitting right around 0 true peak. Just trust me on this for commercial mixes. So we're going to want to go ahead and put that pretty close, but giving us a little bit of room to work. Let's go ahead and jump to the 808, blend that in. So already just with those two elements, we're already at about -12 LUFS, getting right up around 0. All good. We don't have any distortion. Very key to listen for. Are there any unwanted artifacts or sounds just from putting those up at that level? If there is, then you're going to have some tweaks to do in terms of your EQ. Maybe you need to sidechain those, which is what I've done here. But just keep an ear out for any problems with those two initially. Bringing in the snare and the clap here. No definite levels for any of this stuff. I'm just trying to give you an idea for the kick and the 808, but clap and snare, it's all feel. It's all about trying to get it in the pocket, get a nice groove going. So just to show you, we've just leveled our drums and we're already at -11. Very clear, very clean sound to that. But that's where we're going to be achieving most of our loudness. And a lot of you are jumping ahead and you're already mixing in a lot of your instrumentation, and that's going to make it harder for you. So that's why I recommend doing what we did here in the approach of starting with the loudest elements, start with the drums. So there's a lot of questions about how to level the instrumentation, kind of where to put things. And again, it's based off of feel. So I would go back to, the reference, start listening very scientifically and in a very analytical way of how the balance is in terms of where the instruments are sitting. But also when we're talking about instrumentation, you need to consider that vocals are going to be put on this at some point. And even in a lot of cases, they're going to be utilizing the 2-track. So we don't want to put the instrumentation too hot, because then you're just not going to leave any room for the artist to come in and do their vocals. A guitar or something like this is a perfect example of how you can get carried away with your beat mix. You know, if I bring that up, what it's going to do is take away a lot of the energy from the drums, a lot of the dynamic elements, because this does have a lot of low mids, a lot of mid frequencies, and it's also going to create problems when we come to the vocals because we don't have infinite space in a mix. So we're thinking about where we're going to fit all this stuff. So if I brought this up, you know, pretty loud, you notice that? I mean, even just bringing it up for example purposes, but the bass and the drums lost the impact because we're pushing our limiter, which that's the other reason why we put this on and we parked it, because we can hear how the limiter is going to react to a lot of these different elements, which there's going to be a limiter or a maximizer put on your mix or your master at some point. So you might as well be aware of how these different elements are going to interact with that and be able to control it. Same thing with pads. Pads can eat up a lot of headroom when we get down to the master bus and just eat up a lot of space in the mix. So I want these to be pretty subtle. Okay, so we've got our balance down here, and I want you to notice that we achieved loudness by mixing, right? We didn't do anything on our master right now. I've got an imager, which if you want to take a look at what I had here, this is not changing the loudness or the level. And then we haven't done anything on the maximizer except just park our safety net. So this is why this is important, is because now that we've gotten the loudness, we're not going to have to do a whole lot of heavy lifting, and there's not going to be a lot of surprises when we introduce this maximizer to really pump out as much loudness for your beats as possible. So this is specifically for your 2-track, or what you're going to tag, and this is going to play on your beat store. What we want to do is just maximize that. So I'm going to bring this down to our target. Let's just say that was -9 or -10. We'll keep an eye on the LUFS, and let's bring it down until we get to that point. Okay, so we achieved our target there. We're not hearing any distortion. Our mix didn't change at all. It just got a little bit louder. You can see we've got some subtle attenuation on the limiter, and that's all we want. We want that limiter to remain transparent. If you're hearing anything unpleasant, or if your mix just starts sounding squashed and over compressed, then you're mixing too hot, right? Now, after we've done this, and we have the levels how we want for the quote mastered version, the one that people are going to hear in your beat store, all we would do is just bounce this down as a WAV or an MP3, whichever one you're going to post, bounce it out exactly the way we have it here. Now, when you do your multi-tracks, it's as simple as just bringing the master fader back and turning off that limiter. So we're just going to bring the master down till we've got a decent amount of headroom, let's just say 6 dB. something there. So we bring all that down, and then we would just go up here and go to export all tracks as audio files, and we could bounce our multi-tracks. Make sure normalize is off. You do not want to bounce with normalize on, and then just bounce out those multis so that whenever your customer downloads it, they're going to have the stems with plenty of headroom. But the one they're hearing on the website that's really going to compete loudness wise will be that one that we leveled this way and had the brick wall maximizer just to bring us up. All right, y'all, so I hope you picked up some things on quickly mixing this beat here and how to achieve loudness in the mixing process, which is, taking this approach of mixing the loudest elements first and then building all of our supporting elements around it, and then also not relying on our stereo bus processing, our limiter, or our maximizer to get the real perceived loudness and dynamics and punch out of your instrumentals, because it's going to leave a lot more clarity, and it's also going to give you a lot more flexibility when we get to bouncing the stems. When your customer pulls in those stems, they're going to have it sounding the exact same way. They're just going to have headroom to work with, versus if you relied on a lot of compression, stereo bus processing, that relationship and those files, once they're pulled into another session, there could be a lot more guesswork involved. This maximization is going to happen at some point. You might as well know how all these elements in your mix are going to work together at that stage. If you learned anything in the video, please like, subscribe, and consider sharing. If you have any questions about mixing beats or getting loudness for your instrumentals, please leave a comment below, share it with us so that we can help out one another. Hit that notification bell so you know when I'm posting up new videos. Always love interacting with you guys, so let me know what's going on in your sessions. If there's something you're struggling with specifically you want me to cover, I want to hear about it. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.